You're stepping into the shower, lathering up your hair, and suddenly you realize you've been standing there, completely still, for 11 straight minutes. In that time, you've played out a full-blown argument with someone who in the real world has no idea they've even upset you yet. Every line is sharp, every point lands. Inside your head, you've said everything you wish you could say out loud. Or maybe it's not the shower, maybe you're on your way to work, halfway down the highway, and in your mind, you're right back in that meeting from 3 weeks ago. Your boss makes that same offhand comment, the one that stung more than you wanted to admit. Only this time, your response is flawless. You deliver the sharpest, most articulate comeback you've ever given in your life. Spot on timing. Perfect tone. The whole imaginary room goes quiet. People are stunned, nodding along, finally seeing your side. For a second it feels satisfying. And then a loud car horn drags you out of it. Your hands tighten on the steering wheel as you snap back to the present. You realize you've been crawling at 47 in the fast lane, face pulled into the expression of someone accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award on stage in front of thousands of people. It's jarring. One moment you're somewhere else entirely, the next you're just here. If any part of that felt a little too familiar, if it made you want to glance around like, wait, how did you get inside my head? Good. Because there's something very specific that happens in certain kinds of minds, and most of the time, people don't describe it accurately. This isn't just random mind wandering. It's not the casual, oh, everyone daydreams thing we brush off in conversation. This is different. This is what happens when a simple mental habit slowly turns into a place. Not just a distraction, but a kind of inner home that you keep slipping back into, over and over. It's subtle, quiet, and easy to hide, which is exactly why it doesn't get noticed. The people living in it are usually the last ones to think anything might be off, because from the inside, it doesn't feel like a problem at all. It feels like relief, like a pressure valve you can open whenever you need to breathe. So what's actually going on in your brain when this happens? Inside your mind, there's a network called the default mode network. It's the system that turns on when you're not locked on to the outside world, when you're not focused on your phone, your work, the traffic lights, the person in front of you. The moment your attention loosens, this network lights up. And when it does, it starts generating you, your memories, your worries, your fantasies. The conversations you wish you'd had, the scenes you replay, the futures you're afraid of and the ones you secretly hope for. That's its job. It's not broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. But in some people, that network doesn't just switch on every now and then. It starts becoming the preferred setting. The brain slowly begins to treat internal simulation as more rewarding than external reality. The inner movie feels richer than the life playing out outside your skull, and that's a big shift from what we think of as normal. Because once that happens, the real world can start to feel weirdly thin, flat, like the colors are slightly washed out, like something important is missing. In 2002, Professor Eli Sommer, a clinical psychologist at the University of Haifa, looked closely at this exact pattern and gave it a name, maladaptive daydreaming. The term isn't perfect, it doesn't fully match what it feels like from the inside, but it is the most grounded framework we have so far. What he found was that this isn't just a cute quirk or a harmless distraction. It can be something much bigger. People weren't just drifting off for a few minutes. They were spending hours, sometimes most of their waking day, inside narratives they had built entirely in their own minds. We're talking about detailed inner worlds, with recurring characters, locations they return to, and storylines that slowly evolve over months and even years. And almost every one of those stories shared one thing in common. The fantasy world gave them something the real world hadn't managed to give. Not escapism in the lazy, dismissive way people like to use that word, as if you're just avoiding your responsibilities or being dramatic. It's more precise than that. These imagined scenarios often provide control where real life feels chaotic. They offer emotional resolution where real conversations ended abruptly or never really closed. They create a version of connection that feels safe in a way real relationships never quite did. In your head, you can pause a conversation, rewind it, edit it. You can say the perfect line. You can finally make the other person understand you in a way the actual human in your life never seemed to. You can still be hurt, but in that world, you're not powerless. And of course, that feels better. On one level, it sounds like a brilliant adaptation, doesn't it? Your brain found a workaround. It built you a place where things make a bit more sense. But there's a catch, and if you stay in this long enough, it usually shows up. Over time, your brain starts to learn that your emotional needs can be met internally. It learns that you can feel soothed, seen, validated, all without ever risking real-world rejection or mess. And when that learning becomes strong enough, stepping back into the friction and unpredictability of real life starts to feel genuinely worse than staying inside your own head. Real people are unpredictable. Real-life conversations don't follow your script. Intimacy is slow and uncomfortable. It involves misunderstandings, awkward silences, and a lot of uncertainty you can't skip or fast forward through. The daydream, on the other hand, never blindsides you that way. So you keep going back, again and again. Most people don't see it coming. It doesn't show up only in creative people. Some of the most imaginative artists in the world don't actually do this at all. And some people who have never written a single story in their lives do it compulsively every single day. It's not about how intelligent you are either. The research points instead to a trait called absorption, the tendency to become deeply, almost completely immersed in experiences. The people most prone to this are often the same ones who get totally lost in music, who can't just casually watch a film because they walk away feeling emotionally wrecked afterward. They don't just notice things, they feel them intensely. So they build a room inside where they can feel things on their own terms. And then there's the part almost nobody talks about, the shame loop. Picture this. You're 30 minutes deep into a scenario where you're finally saying the thing you never got to say at age 14. You're getting justice. You're being heard. You're being understood by the version of people you wish you had in your life back then. Somewhere in the background, you know time is passing. You know the outside world is still moving while you're gone, but you stay. When you finally resurface, there's this strange emotional aftertaste. It's not exactly guilt, not exactly sadness, but some heavy mix of both. Hard to name, very easy to feel. And before you've even consciously decided anything, you're already halfway back in. Because going back into the daydream is the quickest way to stop feeling bad about how long you were gone. So the cycle builds on itself. The shame feeds the need. The need deepens the habit. And the habit starts to take up more and more of the space where your actual life was supposed to be happening. But that still doesn't mean this is some fundamental flaw in you. Not even close. The people who develop this pattern are statistically often the same people who, at some point, needed a door out that the real world simply didn't give them. Maybe their home didn't feel safe. Maybe they were chronically lonely in spaces that were supposed to feel welcoming: school, family, community. Maybe they were just a little too sensitive for the particular environment they landed in. And this was the most creative, least destructive way their nervous system found to cope. So the daydream wasn't the original problem, it was the solution. It was how you survived something that might have otherwise broken you in a much louder way. The real question now isn't, is this bad? The real question is it still serving you? Or has it started to quietly cost you things you care about? And this is where I want you to actually pause for a second. Some people who recognize themselves in this immediately jump to fixing it. They decide the goal is to eliminate their inner world entirely, to shut the door and lock it for good. But that's not what the research points to. And honestly, it doesn't make much psychological sense. The goal isn't to become someone who never disappears into their own head. The goal is to understand what the disappearing is doing for you. What does the imagined version of connection give you that you're not giving yourself permission to ask for out loud? What does the fantasy version of resolution give you that you're not allowing yourself to actively pursue in real life? What is the scenario rehearsing that you're too afraid to actually live? Because the fact that you can build entire worlds inside your own mind with emotional nuance, narrative coherence, and characters that feel real is not a weakness. It's a capacity, a powerful one. The people who experience this most intensely are often sitting on an enormous amount of internal richness that has just never found the right outlet, the right person, or the right moment of safety to exist in the real world. The tragedy isn't that they imagined so deeply. The tragedy is that, somewhere along the way, they decided that depth was only safe when it was invisible. So if you watched this entire video and felt a very particular kind of quiet recognition, not the "oh, that's interesting" kind, but the kind where you realized you'd stopped blinking for a bit, I want you to hear this clearly. Nothing about you needs to be fundamentally fixed. You adapted, quietly, privately, in a way almost nobody ever saw or gave you credit for. Most people have no idea they're even doing it. If you're curious and want to explore some of these ideas more deeply, I've put together a collection of books that dive further into psychology, human behavior, and independent thinking. You can find the full list on my bookshop page through the link in the description and the pinned comment. And if you genuinely connect with content like this, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. Your support genuinely matters more than you probably realize. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.